ran up a check, I might do it again. Enemies close, had me thinking they're friends. 10 toes down, I'll be free until the end. Crib outside the city, I don't feel safe in my hands. Took so many years, I'm just waiting for the wins. I'm in debt to no one but the one who took my sins. I do it for real, there's no reason to pretend. If I do it once, I do it again. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what. Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what. Add it up, told her if it's all me, everything is on me, gon' back it up. Matter what, told you I'ma do me, why you hating on me, it's not adding up. I do roll like a Mack truck, country heart, I might cop a farm and go act up. Lot of scars, I was cold-hearted, now I'm back up. Keep it real, I do this once a month, I don't rap much. I just take the money and go stack up.
What
hello,
up?
hello.
I like that. What up, Marie?
Hey, good. How you doing, Miko?
I am doing. It's been a long time. I've been on vacation.
Yes, you have.
I apologize, but Marie, you've been holding it down because I've been peeping at you, and I am excited to be back with you. Ain't to Ain't, all things relevant media, myself, Marie, and we got a great show for you tonight. I got my partner that's on with us. We're going to introduce him in just a moment. But first, what I want to do is I want to say, why are we here? You know, so often we get this bad rap, returning citizen. We hear the negative narrative that when you get out, you're automatically returning back into prison. But that is not the case. There are a lot of men and women who are doing well. They are successful in their own rights, whether it's educationally, relationally, occupationally. Nevertheless, they are successful. And that's why we are here with Ain't to Ain't. We are co-laboring with OAA Savannah. And while we're doing that to provide a platform for us to share the story. Why? Because our stories matters, especially when we're talking about OAA, our 3 E's. And what are Marie?
The 3 E's are we encourage, educate, and empower one another. Because that's what one person's testimony can mean a lot to somebody. And there's somebody out there listening, and that's what we do. We're here to give resources and to help.
That's what I'm talking about. Y'all see how confident and quick she is now? That's what I'm talking about. So why else? Because look at myself. There's a phrase, and you'll hear me use it as we move along, and it's this. We may have started out wrong, but look at us now. We are finishing strong. And that's what I love to say about our returning citizens. This is our opportunity to finish strong. So without further ado, first I got to give my shout outs. What up, Julius Hall? He's the one that gave us this platform, All Things Relevant Media. What up, AB? The brainchild of Ain't to Ain't. And of course, my co-host Marie and myself. But tonight we got a friend of mine, somebody that I know that is going to encourage you, somebody that I know that's going to motivate you back to do the things that you wanted to do before, to be the best you that you can be. CJ, what up?
How's it going, man? Thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, yes. Good. What we want you to do, I know you. And there are people that are watching that know you. And for instance, there are some that are watching on YouTube, Facebook. We have some on the radio out in Jessup that's listening as well. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to encourage our people. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, who background music that is? Somebody jamming.
That's not me.
Okay. Let's ride. CJ.
Hey, I'm sorry. I had a little break. I didn't catch your question, man. I'm sorry.
Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what is your relationship to incarceration.
Well, I'm CJ Tarwater. You and I met 2011, somewhere around there, at Phillips State Prison, and I went to prison when I was young, at 17. And, I had only been 17 for 20 days or so when I got arrested. And so for the next 32 years, I spent behind bars. And so, I got out in 2018 or 2019. I went to the transitional center in 2018. I got out in 2019, and I came to LaGrange to take care of my mother. My wife and I came to LaGrange to take care of my mother, and so we're here and trying to make the best of it.
32 years. That's what he said, Marie?
That's what he said. He said 32 years. And you know what, CJ, that's why I can really say, I like what Miko said. We may have started off wrong, but that don't mean that that's our reality right now. Because if looking at you, I would not have thought that you did 32 years. So
And I appreciate that. That's a guy told me at work the other day that he found out that I had been in that long. He was like, I would have never thought that you had ever been in prison. And for me, that's probably the greatest compliment that I could ever have. So I appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome. So, Mr. Top, can I call you CJ?
CJ, please.
CJ, can you tell me a little more about you? Go in depth about yourself. I understand that you did 32 years in prison, but after coming home, was it easy for you? Can you tell me if it was easy for you? Like, was it easy for you to get a job? Was it hard? Can you just go ahead and give us a little more information?
For me, it was, I think it was a little easier for me, I think, than it would have been for some people. I had a good support structure in place, and so a lot of the things that most people struggle with, a place to stay, transportation, those kind of things, I really didn't have to deal with. But there've been other issues. I was really surprised that the probably the most difficult thing that I ran into was a credit score. And I found myself struggling with that because it was okay. Well, you can't do this unless you have a credit score, but you can't have a credit score until you do this.
Exactly.
And so it was like there was this ever non-ending circle that I found myself caught up in. And so, luckily for me, my wife had really good credit, and so she kind of co-signed for me everything. And of course, 700 plus points later, I don't have that problem anymore. But from the beginning, that was a very difficult situation for me. So I can't imagine, what the struggle would be like for someone who was in prison beyond their support structure. The people that supported them had passed away, they had moved on, whatever it was, and you had to get here back into society with the stigma of incarceration, the restrictions that we have on certain jobs in which you can make a living wage, and you only have the one suit of clothes and the check that they give you when you're released. That would be almost insurmountable, I think.
Right. So, Mr. CJ, I see that you have a criminal law degree, like you study criminal law.
Yeah. In my family, it's kind of, my family is one of those families where it kind of separates between law and medicine. Not everybody is doctors. Most of the people that I know are nurses or nurse practitioners, and so we have people in law that there's attorneys, there's judges. My mentor through law school was a judge, and my cousin, his wife, who was one of the more prominent defense attorneys in the state at that time. And so they were my mentors. And so not only did I learn through the law school itself, but I had really good mentors. And when I didn't understand things, they kind of pointed me in the right direction to be able to intuit what needed to be done and so on. And so that was my first big accomplishment, was getting my paralegal degree. And then I went on to get my specialist degree, and then came the private investigation degree and lots of other degrees that followed in that process. But at some point I figured out that knowing the law wasn't enough. Right. That in order for me to be able to challenge my case in a meaningful manner, that I needed to understand the investigative aspects. Mm-hmm. And so I got into forensic sciences for that purpose. And so, now there, I hold certifications in bloodstain interpretation analysis, shooting incident reconstructions, and, a couple of, what we call internal and external ballistics, which is how the gun actually operates and how the bullet operates once it leaves the muzzle and so on. So, yeah, so I have a couple of different things in the background.
I am so impressed, and I'm quite sure people who are listening are very impressed because with you having the background of having to, been in prison for that long, that you come out with a mindset of wanting to do, and you're doing very well. May I say that
Thank you.
you're doing very well? So
Thank you.
yes, go ahead, Julius. I'm sorry.
No, I love what you're saying but I want you for a moment to just go back a little bit, CJ. Tell us a little about your prison experience. And I don't mean the negativity aspect of it. We'll say that for another show. But I'm talking about what was it that pushed you to be who you are today? Did you progressively prepare to be the CJ that you are now? How did that start while you was incarcerated?
Well, I think for me early in my incarceration, within, the first 5 years or so are pretty difficult for everybody. That's that transition period when you're transitioning from freedom into, and there's no really other way to say it, to enslavement. And you give up your identity and you give up all of these things that they want to give up. Early on in my bid, I decided that I was not going to be a statistic. And we hear those statistics, and we're quick to objectify people. And once we turn people into objects, then we have the opportunity at that point to write a narrative, and we write that narrative in a way to not well we don't let me go back. We don't write the narrative. As they write the narrative, they do it in a way that promotes the control of the people that are in the prison system. And so early on, I decided that that's not going to be me. I'm not going to let anybody outside of me dictate who I am, what my values are, or what my self-worth is. And, and so in my file, I have that resistant, I was the resistant guy but it was important for me that even though they had my body for 32 years, they didn't have my mind for a minute. And I think that was the thing for me, was that I was like, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to continue to think, and I'm going to continue to help people and advocate for people. And I'm going to continue to write grievances, and I'm going to continue to do the things that I'm doing and help people in the ways that these people need help. And so for me, it was just, that was just who I was. And I was going to stay true to that. And that's what I did. And so early on, it was that, no, I can't let you have my mind. It's too precious. And of course, at that point, I didn't really think in these terms, but I just knew that you're not going to get my mind. Because once you can control my mind, then you control everything. You control my present, my past, you control my future. You are in complete control of me as an individual. And so now you dictate my outcomes rather than me being able to dictate my outcomes for myself. And so I think early on, that was kind of my mantra, is that I was not going to be a statistic.
And so as you did that, tell me, what are some practical things that you did to help you and that you're utilizing now? And I say that because we may have some of our brothers and sisters that are on the inside, transitional centers or places like that, halfway houses. What were you doing practically inside that you are now prepared to do while you're on the outside, and that has helped you?
For me, I think that mine was the introduction and education. I think that education is not realized for its potential in a lot of ways, because I think that the general consensus, both in society and also in prison, is that education is just something that you have. You get a degree, and it's a credential, and so you use that credential to be able to find a job and so on. But I don't think that people understand the power of education. The thing, one of the people that was extremely important to my formation was an advocate who was also a career educator. His name was Paulo Freire. And what Paulo Freire talked about was the bank deposit form of education, which is what most of us go through in our lifetimes. Another person that was really important to me in my formation was Miles Horton. And anybody that has studied the civil rights movement and so forth understand the prominence and what he meant to that movement. But there was two guys they talked about and said, well, as Miles said, our public education system is designed to teach us how to participate in our form of government. Okay, so because we have this, this capitalistic society, our education system teaches us to be capitalist. And so the thing is that's what Paulo Freire referred to as that bank deposit education. So I'm going to tell you that 2 + 2 is 4. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to teach you how you can parrot that back to me. Anytime I ask you, what is 2 + 2? You automatically respond 4, and you're right. But what they don't teach you are the concepts. Why is 2 + 2 4? And we need to understand those concepts, because in the concepts is where we find the power of education. And so for me, when I began to understand, no, I don't want you to tell me 2 + 2 is 4. I want you to be able to understand the question, intuit that question, break that question down into its most intricate parts, and tell me why. Is 2 + 2 4? And if so, why? Explain it to me. And once we began to understand the power of thinking, we're in a completely different zone. And for me, that was the thing that was the biggest thing for me, is that, once I began to think things through and I began to see things, now things are like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense now, why this person acts this way, or why it's difficult for that person to be in these situations. And all of these things that were kind of, shrouded in shadow, so to speak, began to make more sense to me. And once you begin to understand that you can think and the power of thinking, then there's really no going back.
So how has that way of thinking, benefited you? The education that you held on to, that you pursued on the inside, how has it benefited you on the outside? Share with us some of the things that you are doing, some of the things that you shared with me.
Well, I think that probably the number one thing that I learned from education is the love of people.
Okay.
And I think that anything that we do for a person, it happens out of love. And we do that, and we love in the way that Christ told us to love in the scriptures. And whether you accept that as faith or you accept that as an historical document, I'm not here to convince you one way or the other. But for me, two things that I understood about Christ was that, one, he was a creator, and not in the sense of the creator of all, but he was a creator in everything that Christ did for someone. They had a part to do. Okay, you need to go into the Jordan and wash your eyes. You need to do this. You need to do that. So it shows that it tells me that first there's something that we all have a part to play in what we do. But secondly, it's the love of people. And if you don't love people, you cannot be successful. And you have to have that love of people in a situation to where, not love as in a spousal love or how I love my children, but a love in the simplest context where I want to see the best for you.
Right.
And I want to love to see that you make it, you move forward. That's why, think about this. That's why we work with one another. That's why we held each other up when we were behind. That's why we hold each other up now. And it's not because whether you're successful or whether you're unsuccessful, in the strictest sense, it doesn't affect me at all. And vice versa. No matter how successful that I am, it doesn't affect you in the strictest sense at all. But when we accept those successes through love and wanting to see the best for other people, now I can accept what you've done, and I can celebrate that, and I can push that out, and I can say, I can talk about you to other people with the pride because you're getting the best that you can get. And I think that whether we're talking about reentry, whether we're talking about life itself, or we're talking about anything else, if you have a complete disregard for other people, you're never going to be successful.
Wow. I have never looked at it like that. I say I have never looked at it. I like what you say. That if you don't, I like that. That was really good. Now,
So what are you
say,
doing now? I'm sorry, Marie.
no, go ahead, Miko.
So what are you doing now? Tell us some of the things, your adventures since you've been home, your business ideas, your educational pursuits, your organizations, your advocacy work. Tell us what's going on.
I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing you, so I didn't catch all of your question, but I think you were saying about the advocacy and so on. So, one thing in last January, so let me be specific. In January 2021, I was licensed by the federal government as a certified human rights consultant, and I have now I'm a part of several different organizations, Humanity at Work, Beauty and the Beast Publishing, 360 Business, as a contributor to them. Right now, I'm in training to be a group leader in the humanities with the National Endowment of Humanities, and I'm waiting to hear right now if I've been accepted in a Justice Policy Fellowship program that's being offered by the Education Trust in Washington D.C. And so
Wow.
there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things that are in transition for me. One thing that I'm doing right now is I found an organization called uh, um, Nonprofit Readiness, and it's nonprofit readiness ready, not readiness. I'm sorry, nonprofitready.org, and you can go there and you can take all the certifications that you need to open up a nonprofit, and it's all free of charge. And so you're in, and it's completely legitimate. You can do continuing education credits, go through these people. And so what I'm doing now is just getting certified in the different aspects of nonprofits, for what I can be an advisor in some way if I can help, because there's a couple of different boards that I am on the board of advisors with. One is the Georgia State Program of Common Good Atlanta. I helped build that program, just through the work that we did as students. And now that I'm out, I serve an advisory position. I'm on the board of directors with a company transferring from London to the United States called The Shift. And
Wow.
I sit as the director of legal and advocacy services for them. And so hopefully once they get here, we're going to be able to kind of speed up the process of the transfer. And what The Shift does is my passion. And that is, we deal with human rights issues, civil rights issues, social justice issues. We deal with through humanity at work. We deal with making the workplaces, no matter what that workplace is, a more equitable position to be in, better conditions for workers, and so on. And I have a personal friend of mine named Maurice Swafford. She's also an advocate, and she does more freelance work, but she does a lot of work in the mental health industry and also in the veterans industry. And so she's gotten me into some of those issues as well. And so there's a lot of different things that I deal with, a lot of different things that I do. And I advise to a couple of different groups on social medias and so on, just in prison issues and those things. And so, but I think that it seems to be a lot, but I mean, there's so many things that we have that has to be changed. I mean, we have to change these things. There's just no question. And so again, from a personal perspective, when I stand before my maker, when everything is said and done, then I have to atone for what I did or didn't. And so no matter what doesn't get changed, it won't be for lack of my effort to make those changes.
You know what, CJ? I'm gonna say something. You are doing. I know you say it may not seem like a lot, but when you tell me everything that you got going on, you have a lot going on. Now I thought Julius had a lot going on, but you got a lot going on, and which is good. It's a good thing. It's really good. I like that. But you have a lot going on, and in the process of doing all of that, right? God, that's a lot. In the process of doing all of that, How long have you been married?
Oh, we just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary. But we knew each other for several years before then. But we got married 3 years ago, right after, because that's not something I wanted to do on the inside. I mean, and there's no critique. Everybody to their own how they do things. I'm great with that.
Right.
But then again, too, though, but in fairness, though, it wasn't so much that because Julius can tell you that even when they told me that I was going to a transition center, everybody was celebrating. I was like, okay, I've been here before, and so and until I'm out, this is not real for me.
Right.
And so, and the thing was, and it was just my reality, and and I'll leave for another day, some kind of some story time that I can tell you about some of the things that I did, but I was just, I was done playing the game. And so, I wasn't being negative at all. But sometimes when people ask me things, and Julius can tell you this because I think I said it to him before, and he certainly heard me say it to other people. And I would tell him, listen, man, if you want to talk about parole issues, I am not the person that you want to talk to if you have hope. Because for me, as an individual, my hope has seeded to my reality many years before that. And so, and it was difficult a lot of times. And so even when the great happened for me, I was like, okay. When I'm home and I'm out and I'm living in society, then I believe it. And it was real. And so, here I am, and working on 4 years later, I have a lot going on, and I'm still here. And so, and the thing is that, and I want to go back to something Julia said in the opening about people, that get out in the narratives. And, one thing that I've been talking about for probably 15 years or so now is that it's necessary for us to have a place. Whether that place is online, whether it's a physical place, it doesn't matter, to where we can take these stories of the successful and publish those and maintain those and archive those stories. Because when we don't do that, the only thing that people that's never been affected by the prison system understands is what they see on the nightly news.
That's it.
That, and the thing is that one thing that I've never heard in my life is, well, Johnny here ran out into traffic and saved this child and lost his life, and he just got out of prison last week. I've never heard that narrative. And the problem is that we, as long as we wait on other people to tell that story, we're never going to hear that side of it. Because there's nothing positive to the powers that be for us to be human beings. Because if people can look at us as humans, now the whole narrative changes that well, how do you do people this way? How do you let people live in these conditions? So now we're no longer talking about offenders. We're not talking about prisoners. We're not talking about all of these titles and these, of these objects that they decide to reduce us to. No, we're talking about human beings. And when we begin to see people as human beings in humanity, now everything is different. Because I can deal with an object and I can let an object be treated unfairly because it doesn't matter if it's an object. And if that object's gone, then I can replace it with another object. But when I look at people and I see beyond that, and I see, okay, this person is really not a GDC number. He's not an EF number. This is an individual with a past and with the present and with the future. And this is a human being that we're dealing with. Now things aren't so clear cut.
But what,
so that's an issue for me.
CJ, you know what tickles me? And that's the word I'm going to use, is because they forgot, the CEOs forgot that jumpsuit that we had on is the same jumpsuit that they can have on.
Sure.
Things happen in life. And I asked the sheriff one day, I said, why are you so nice? He said, because I realized that I have to respect you because I won't respect you. He said, you are a human being. And
Absolutely.
So when they take, it's something, I love that what you just said. And that's what they have to do. Stop looking at us like we are just a pair of boots and treat us as such. So I love what you just said.
Well, I mean, if I can respond to that, I think that you hit something important there, because I mean, when we look at, probably one of the greatest novels or the greatest text that's been written in the last 20 years was The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And so she talks about these, all these demographics that we're talking about now. And we talk about how even, the first, this first mass incarceration, as we call this, that happened was, right after the ratification of the 13th Amendment. Okay, well, we want you, okay, you're free, but just stay with your slave masters and you can, well, no, we're going to leave. We're not going to do that. Okay, well, now I can't control you. So how do we reinstate the control? And how do we do that? We do that by mass incarceration. And so now what do? They criminalize these trivial things. And once they did that, then all of a sudden now we have these bodies back in these places, back under our thumbs, back under our control. And now we can force them to continue to work for free. And we can continue to control them, and we can continue. And now not only did we reinstate slavery, but look what else we did now under this Constitution. We have now deprived these people of some of the most basic rights that we had, the right to vote and so on. And so these things were very well thought out. This was not, a system that just happened overnight and somebody said, hey, I got an idea. We can make money off of locking people up. No. That is a major component of this thing. But it's always been about control, and it's always been able to control the narrative of other people. And we did, think about when we came in and we brought the slaves in, you couldn't call yourself your name. You couldn't practice your religion. You couldn't do anything. And so what do they do when you come into prison? They shave your head. They shave your facial hair. They take your name away. They give you a number. And they dress you like everybody else. So they destroy your identity. So even though those systems have passed away, the components and the way that those systems operated are still very alive and well today in this country. And that's one of the things that we most definitely have.
Answer this question then. And what's up, Kira? Kira Robinson says, speak, CJ. She says, this show is great tonight. And Tiffany says, slavery is illegal except far as punishment of a crime. And she also says, welcome home. Help us to understand two things. Number one, how this is so prevalent in America, but a lot of people don't really understand that about what's going on behind the prison walls. And I say that to say this: the community or society is ignorant of incarceration, number one, and of how incarceration has become legalized slavery in a sense. So how do we educate society, number one, and what do we do to motivate them to change some things?
Well, let me take your second question first. The second question is easier. We continue to do what we're doing now. We do exactly what we're doing right now. And that is that we continue to reinstill humanity and one of the terms that I've grown to hate is a returning citizen. Where did we go? What did we go to the moon? Did we go to Mars? We never left society. We were just in a different part of society. That's always been something that I struggle with as far as labels and titles go. But I think that the second part is the most important part, is that we have to continue to re-educate, man. And Julius, and some of the long conversations that I and Smiley had and others, that that we've known that we have to re-educate society, because just in this recent system, this goes all the way back into the late 50s and early 60s with the I'm Not a Crook himself, when he came out with this war on drugs. And so we look back at Reagan and saying, okay, well, this was Reagan. No. It goes back way further than that. So we're talking about for 75 years in this most current, and I stress that, in this most current epoch of this crime situation, we have 75 years of indoctrination to overturn. And just to be honest, there is no easy way. There's no short way it's just not an easy task to be able to re-educate people that, first of all, they don't feel like they need to be educated.
Right.
They feel like that they've got it all right, that they've got the answers right, that the way that these people or us people, I should say, that has been behind the prison wall and all of these things, they have it right and we're wrong.
Right.
And so that is a very difficult thing to deal with. And so, and again, you know, right now, today in 2022, one of the toughest things to have is an educated conversation. I'm not talking about my opinion against your opinion and you're right. And so because you're right, I have to be wrong, or vice versa. Or you're Republican and I'm Democrat, so everything you do is wrong. We came up with all of these lines and these groups to assign ourselves to, so that we don't have to have these conversations. And so one thing is that people are ignorant, and a lot of those people are ignorant not of any fault for themselves, because that's just, and we heard this all the time, but that's just the way it is. Things have just always been that way. And so they grow up learning these things, they grow up understanding these things, and they don't really question, well, why do we think this way about people who've been in prison? You know, why do we think this way about prisons? Why do we do? No. Nobody questions any of those things. And so I think that, you know, that is very difficult, because some people don't know that they're ignorant when it comes to the prison system. But one thing I would share with you is I thought it was interesting that right after the Tough on Crime, the advent of Tough on Crime, you know, there was a state representative. She was a female, and she was from Savannah area, and she was just knock on dead, throw away the key. We should bring back the gallows. I mean, she was just extreme, and her son got arrested for armed robbery. And she turned in. She went from the staunchest ally of just throwing away the key and let's get rid of the prisons and let's just execute everybody and blah blah blah, to being one of the forerunners in the advocacy for why we need to get away with Tough on Crime, why we need to get rid of, you know, the 7 deadly sins legislation, which affected her son. And so sometimes it takes that personal brush. How does it affect me? And one more thing I'd like to throw out there about that was interesting is that I saw in one of my newsletters an attorney recently said, if Tough on Crime works, the United States at this point would be a utopia. Because for almost 30 years now, we have eradicated entire generations of people through Tough on Crime, and our crime rates are at an all-time high. It didn't work. How do we move on? And the logic of that statement is just impossible not to think about. I mean, because remember what they told us: Tough on Crime, we don't care what these people went through in their lives. We don't care about Joe Biden, as a matter of fact, our current president, when he was a senator. Hey, we don't care what happened to them. We don't care why they acted up. We don't care if it was our fault, their fault. Lock them up. Because if we don't, we're going to have these predators running around in our streets, and we're going to have this next generation of criminals, and they're going to hit your wife over the head with a pipe, and they're going to challenge my son, and they're going to do all of these things. And so as what normally a Republican tactic, they use fear to force society's hand. And now here we are 30 years later, billions of dollars that have been wasted, and we're not a day safer than we were from the beginning of all of these things. And so I think and so I say that just to kind of add food for thought. But there's no easy answer to that question. But how do we re-educate? I think if any of us knew that question, then we would win the Nobel Prize tomorrow.
CJ, can I ask you a question? Because you real political. Do you think that the Constitution should be revamped, revisited, and rewritten over again?
I absolutely do.
Thank you.
And I think that one of the most one of the most ridiculous things that I hear, and I hear it probably a little more than other people just because of that I'm involved in the legal system and so on. The founding fathers of this country said. That doesn't mean anything to me because those same founding fathers said unless you were white, Anglo-Saxon Protestant, you had no rights in the United States. If you were a woman, you could not vote. You were an extension of your husband. You weren't even an individual.
That's
Black
right.
black people, Chinese people, Latinos, all of these other people that don't really get mentioned in this abuses, and even white people, poor white people. We can't leave them out. They've been victimized because the founding fathers said. Okay, well, look how many amendments we have to the Constitution already. So we know that 20 plus times the founding fathers were wrong. And so I think that right now what we have in this country now is the entire government needs to be revamped. And and again, just to give credence to those that love to say something about the founding fathers.
Let me reel you back in for a minute.
I
understand that, but I want to know how. And don't get me wrong, what you're saying. I just want to know how we can help the community that we're in Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia. How can we help those that are incarcerated? Number one, and number two, how can we motivate people to change their mindset as it relates to incarceration?
Well, I think from a health perspective, it's clear that we need to do what we're doing. We need to be able to, we need for those people that are getting out that don't have that support structure. Okay. They need food in their bellies. They need clothes on their backs. They need a place, that's safe that they can lay their heads and sleep. So just the basic. We need to be able to provide the basic life necessities to those people, first of all. And secondly, again, we just have to be able to put it out there to people, and we have to be able to strike some way in which we can sit down with people that don't think the way that we think. And we need to be able to sit down and have honest debates about tough questions. And I think that's the part that we're missing. And so I think that is the plug that we need, is that we need to be able to sit down with someone who supports tough on crime and be able to have, and me, someone that is opposed to tough on crime, and be able to sit down and have a conversation with them and say, okay, look, we're not going to bring the stereotypes into this. We're not going to bring the political views. Let's just look at the facts. And once we can agree that there's some issues that we can tackle, I think that our job becomes much more easier. I think it becomes much easier if we can agree, even if we agree to disagree on some of the major issues. A wise person once said that that 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. And so that's what we need. We need to be able to get there. We need to be able to get that first step. And we need to be able to bring together everybody. Because this isn't just sure. Brown, blacks, we're affected by the system more than, disproportionately more than anyone else.
Right.
But to say that, what about the poor white people? They can't, and they come to court with those same public defenders, and they get these ridiculous sentences and so on. And so I think that we need to, first of all, diversify what we're dealing with. When we go before that, we need to be united, and it needs to be a white initiative and a brown initiative and a black initiative, and we all need to come together and speak in one voice and be firm. And say, you know what, we've come to a point to where this is no longer acceptable. And we have to move forward. We have to move forward as a people, not a white people, not a black people, not a brown people, but as a people. And we're no longer going to take this.
Now let's turn the corner because we're getting ready to close. I want you to take that same passion
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to encourage our brothers and sisters that's still behind the bars.
Mhm.
Number one. Number two, I want you to motivate the community to be able to do what you just said. Because coming together won't matter if they don't know what they're coming together for. A lot of people are ignorant of incarceration. They're ignorant of what's going on behind the bars, which is prison reform. They're ignorant of
Mhm.
reentry issues. So churches, communities, families, they need to find out what's going on with their loved ones. So coming together is great, but we got to be educated when we come together. So encourage right now. Encourage our brothers and sisters that's behind the bar. You did 32 years, and look at you now. I think that just visibly, that's a motivation
That's
for
awesome.
others that have done a lot of time or are doing a lot of time. They can still come out and succeed too. So encourage our brothers and sisters who are still behind the bars, and then motivate those who are on the outside.
Well, I think that motivating people is probably one of the more difficult things that we do. Because the thing is that another brother that's been really successful since he's got out is a brother named Patrick Rodriguez. And I was speaking with Patrick the other day, and we were talking about that. And the journeys are all different. Our journey to how we got to prison, what prison is like, and our journey after prison, even though they're similar, they're different. And we have to internalize those things. But the thing for me is that, in 32 years, the roller coaster was real. And the toughest thing that happened for me was that, I made it to the transitional center in October. And, I went to see my dad in November, the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend. And he passed away on December 12th.
Wow.
And that was that was the hardest thing that I've done, the hardest thing that I've dealt with. And so, but the thing is that when you become motivated, you have to motivate yourself for you. I cannot live my life for my kids, for my parents, for my grandkids, because this life is my life, and I have to live this, and I have to, and I'm good when I can celebrate, the successes. But one of the biggest things is looking in that mirror, and that's the hardest thing that we do as human beings. Look in that mirror when it's nobody but you, and you look in there and you say, okay, you know what? These are the really good things that help me. These are the really good things about me, and these are the not so good things. And you have to be honest with that, and you have to understand, because it has to be me in my head. I have to understand where I'm going. I have to understand where I started, where I came from, where I am, and how do I get to where I want to go. And that's not easy things to do. Those are not easy things to do, to look in that mirror and judge myself honestly. That's extremely difficult to do. But once you do that, you take back the power of yourself. Once you do that, and once you own everything that you are, now you can say, you know what? Maybe a GED really isn't such a bad thing. Maybe taking college classes, or maybe getting into trade school really isn't such a bad thing. Maybe improving, maybe going into these groups, these classes that they have in prison, maybe that's really not a bad thing, and maybe I'll find something there that can help me. Because again, another wise man once said that the committed mind cannot be defeated.
Mm.
And let me say that again. Once your mind is committed, it cannot be defeated. So that's the thing we have to do, but we can't commit to ourselves until we know ourselves. Do that. Commit to yourself. You owe it to yourself, because you know what? Once you're a better self, you're going to be a better son. You're going to be a better daughter. You're going to be a better parent. You're going to be all of those things because you are better. And the thing is that when you start doing better, people are going to start telling, hey, man, you're acting different, man. What you got going on, man? You ain't acting like you used to. You ain't hanging with them fools you used to hang with. You're not doing this. People begin to understand that. And before you know it, now those changes, those tough changes that are changes today becomes a lifestyle tomorrow. And once you begin to live that lifestyle on the straight and narrow, you can't fail. As long as you're honest with yourself, you can't fail. And it doesn't matter if you're going to be if you're going to be an advocate or if you're going to be a truck driver. Do the best that you can do because that's what you owe yourself. And we all made mistakes.
Gotcha.
Now, am I a mistake or did I make a mistake? Because if I am a mistake, then I'm everything that these people have said that I am.
Right.
But if I made a mistake like everybody else in the world have made mistakes, guess what? I can learn from that mistake and I can move on. Because the only mistakes that are mistakes are those that we don't learn from. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is too, and the last thing I want to say about that is nobody's ever came up to you and said, "Hey, Julie, let me get about 3 of your mistakes, man." Ain't never happened. And so we already own those mistakes. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. There's nothing wrong with anything that we've done in our lifetimes. There's no shame in saying, "Hey, I need help. Reach down, brother, help me up." What is shameful is when you know that you have those things and you choose to stay in that state. That's when it becomes shameful. We're all designed to move forward. We're all designed to move to greatness. Don't let their prison keep you there, man. I know. And Julie, you can testify for this. A lot of other brothers could. I have another side, and I get kind of rough and get kind of out of the way sometimes. And it was difficult, but you know what? That's something that I had to deal with. And so that would be my motivation for you is to believe in yourself. And once you find yourself, you are in control of your life for the rest of your life, unless you see control the second time. And again, what you're saying about just getting people to come together, bro, again, that's the most difficult question that we deal with. And so I've already spoken on that a couple of times. So I'm just going to kind of leave it there about my previous comments. But we just have to, we all have to admit it, bro. We just have to say, hey, you know what? This prison issue isn't something that's happening on Mars, but it's affecting me right here directly. And see, and I think that's another thing too that I will add to that. Now that I said that is that sometimes we want to deal with those things that affect us personally. And so if we see that making prison easier is going to make our life easier, then we tend to lean in that direction. And so we do that again by doing what we're doing now and publishing success stories.
Marie, as we get ready to come to a close, you want to add any comments to what he said?
I just want to say thank you, CJ, for coming on the show and just telling us about everything that we needed to know, the knowledge that you have. I really appreciate it. I'm going to say again, I'm very proud of you for being the man that you are today. I don't have anything to do about your yesteryears because I have some yesteryears too. So I'm just proud of the man you are today. Keep doing all that you are doing, inspiring and encouraging and helping. Okay?
Thank you for saying that, and I appreciate you having me.
Yep. And I'll say the same thing, man. I am excited finally to get you on to share your story, finally to allow people to be motivated just like you were motivated. You didn't just come out and just chill. You came out strong, passionate, and look at the things that you're doing right now. For our brothers and sisters on the inside, as always, I encourage you. It is not over. Keep on pushing. Keep progressively preparing to be the person that you know that you were called to be. Those of you that are on the outside, I just want to push you even the more. You are here now, and we owe it to those that are still behind the bars to be the best us that we can be. To our community and the society, you have someone in your family that is incarcerated. Check on them. See what's going on. We do need to learn more about this prison reentry. reentry form, reform. We need to know more about these things. And I'm always excited to be here with you just to give you a little bit of encouragement. Because I say it all the time. I may have started out wrong, but look at me now. I'm finishing strong. And I say that in humility, not in pride, because we want to change the narrative. And that's what we love to do. What up? I see you, Eric. He's watching. I appreciate you coming on, CJ. We love you. To the rest of yours that are watching, we'll see you next week, if God's will, on another edition of Ain't the Ain't. Love you.
Good night.
like that.